Stampers, my name is Linda Bedinger and I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator. And today I'd like to show you how I made this card. I'm going back to using the material that is now still available in pre-order for another couple of weeks. I'm sorry, I've got clear embossing powder all over the place here. So out of this stamp set, the Love What You Do, I am using the Thank You, and I'm using this little cluster of flowers, and there's my stamps mounted there. And then I am using the dynamic embossing folder that's available in that pre-order. So this lovely, big, beautiful image of this flower on the inside that we can use here. And so what you need to make this, and I'm changing up my colors this time. I'm going to do this in one of our other new colors. This one was done in Mint Macaron, and I'm doing this one in Highland Heather. And so let me move this out of the way for the moment. What we need to make this card is a piece of Highland Heather. I cut mine 11 by 4 1/4, folded and scored at 5 1/2, and then I have 3 pieces of Whisper White, 2 of which are cut by 4 by 5 1/4, 5 1/4 by 4, yes, and they're layering pieces for the top of the front of the card and the inside of the card. Then we need a piece that is at least 4 inches by 4 inches to create this panel that's going to go on the top here. So I'll move those out of the way, and the very first thing I'm going to do is a bit of my stamping. I'm going to do all the stamping we need, and then we'll go on to showing you how to make this lovely image on the top here. All right, so I've got my Highland Heather ink pad, and the ink pads, this is one of the new ink pads, and they open this way. I've heard horror stories about people breaking the lids and cracking them, and they're really very simple. This part just lifts up, and what I do is I put my nails one sort of at the top, and almost like you would a coin, open this so that it comes apart. And then this just flips straight back. Then this piece moves forward here and is in place. And my hands get a little inkier using these, and some people say they're a little challenging to slide back and forth, but what I'm finding is that once you slide them back and forth once or twice, they start to get easier and easier. So the very first thing I'm going to do is, and I need my Versamark ink for this, and I need my clear embossing powder for this. So what I'm going to do is use my embossing buddy here on the bottom of my card panel here, and I need my Pierce mat because these are photopolymer. So here we go, one more time on this, and then I'm going to take my very dirty Versamark pad here. We did in class this last weekend a bunch of black ice, and people didn't get their cards completely dried before they tried using the Versamark. So in any case, you can see that this thank you is down here towards the bottom. So I am going to dip this first in Versamark and then in my pretty Highland Heather. And I can see that I've got that good and inked up. And I'm going to set that down here at the bottom towards the left and get a good image. There we go. And then I'm going to put this in clear embossing powder. And there we've got our clear embossing powder. And then I'm going to take my heat tool and I'm going to heat set this, and I will quiet the video while I do that. There we have our nicely embossed thank you in Highland Heather. Now, of course, you can do this with any color. I see I missed a spot, so I'm going to have to turn this back on. Okay, and you can heat emboss in virtually any color by doing your stamp into the Versamark first and then into the ink color. It doesn't hurt your ink pad. And there you've got your nice embossing in whatever color you want. Now I'm going to do the same thing with my little cluster of flowers here. And I've got those set down here at the base. And let me make sure I've got plenty of ink on that. And I'm going to set that down right here and get a nice image and do exactly the same thing. Okay, so that card front is now prepared with the Versamark and the embossing. So now I'm going to prepare the inside of the card, and on that what I did was I just put that same image all the way down one side of the card embossed in the ink that I'm using. So grab one of these panels and use my embossing buddy and do exactly the same thing. I'll be back in a flash. And there we have our pretty flowers all down the side of the inside panel. Okay, I think that is all I need the Versamark and the clear embossing powder for. So we'll set those aside and set that aside. Now we need to do our work on the embossing folder and this last piece here. Okay, so here is my piece of Whisper White and my embossing folder. And what I'm going to do is on the side that the Stampin' Up! Side sign is on the inside of that you will feel that the image is indented here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my ink pad and I'm just going to drag it across all of the places here on this embossing folder here and get a nice image or coverage of the ink on that piece. Then I'm going to very carefully place this piece in my embossing folder, put down this piece, and run this through my Big Shot, and I will be back in a flash. Okay, I'm back with my piece here, and I'm going to open this up, and there you see I've got my piece embossed with the ink around it and the white image showing through. And I have lots of ink on the inside of my embossing folder, and I'm just going to wipe this down a bit for now, and then when I'm done with this video I will take this over to the sink and just run this under the water to make sure I get all of the residue of that ink off of the inside of my embossing folder on both sides. Isn't that just pretty though? So now what I'm going to do is, since this layering piece is 4 inches wide, I want this piece to be 3 3/4 of an inch wide so that it will layer in there. So let's see, if I set this, I'm going to take 1/4 of an inch off of this side. Then I'm going to turn it around and make it 3 3/4, which allows me to have almost all of my flower on there. I could have taken a little bit more off this side and left this side a little bit smaller. In fact, I think I will take off just a tiny bit more on this side. so that it looks a little bit more balanced. And then this is already cut here, so it ends up being 4 7/8 by 4 by 3, 3 7/8 by 3 5/8, and that's fine. It just needs to be a small enough piece that I can layer it on for effect on my other panel here. So that's all I need my ink for. So I'm going to take my ink and put it aside. And now I have my panel here, and this is going to go on this piece centered above the remaining part of the card. And I am going to put this up on dimensionals, and I have some ribbon to place on this, and I'm using some of this ribbon that will be retiring at the end of the month. This is the white organza ribbon, so I'm trying to use a little bit of it up, and I'm just going to wind this around here and tie a bow. So typically you need 14 or 15 inches of this ribbon to go around a panel to make have enough room left to tie a bow. So I'm going to just come around this, maybe down here on the bottom, and put my piece in. And I've had some requests lately for bow tying, and so I'm going to do this a couple times in the next several videos as I put in ribbon. But taking your ribbon so that it is flat coming from both sides and making sure your piece on the back is absolutely flat. Then left over right, and then pulling so that you're up and down, and the two ends coming in from either side are flat. Then to make a bow, make a loop and go around towards your hand to the back and underneath and through the little hole that's made, and then pull tight. Now then, what I do is pull my strings down so that my bow is actually quite a bit smaller than I ultimately want it, and then tighten it up, and that tightens the ribbon underneath it as well. Then you can start manipulating your bow here to be have your tails going the direction you want, and having the loops be the size you want them to. And in this case, I don't want this bow to be giant. I just want a little bow here, and I'm going to move it a little bit over towards one side on my card, and then just trim my tails. There we go. Now I'm going to put this piece up on dimensionals. Okay, and then set this piece in place. Isn't that just pretty? This kind of a background is just a little bit different, and I think very attractive. And what did I do to get the sparkles? Okay, so we've got this piece and we've got this piece, and I want sparkles on everything. So what I did was I used my fine tip glue pen, and I put a lot of glue down on my centerpiece here, and by that I mean quite a bit of glue. And I know it gets your fingers dirty, but I moved the glue around on that center space so that that was really covered. And I put glue also in each of these little flowers down here on the bottom. And then I used my Dazzling Diamonds glitter, and I also, well, let me get this part done first. So I put quite a bit of glue and quite a bit of glitter on those spaces, and then shook it off, and then used my finger to set that into the glue a bit, and then brush the rest of the glue off. And you can use a little paintbrush to do that, so that you get glue mostly where you want it. Then I used my fine tip glue also, and I just put some on my finger here, squeezed a bit of it out in place, and I smeared some a couple of places on the front of my card here. And you can do it a couple of different ways by putting it in place in those places that you kind of want it. And I'm going to put some down here as well, using your finger to kind of smear it around a little bit on some of those places, and immediately putting some glitter across those places as well. And what you end up doing then is getting your glitter to stick to those places that you had the glue. And there you've got just a little bit of glitter kind of on a couple of different spots around the card. And I think that made it very attractive. And some of that glitter will come off and some of it won't, because some of it will be stuck to the glue, and that's fine. That's kind of what I was looking for. And you can use some glitter and press it into the glue that stays a little bit sticky for quite a while. Okay, so that's the front of the card. Now, of course, I've got glitter everywhere. That's one of the hazards of fooling with glitter. And then what I did was I used this same scheme of using this glue in a lot of these little flowers down here along this edge. By the way, when this glue gets a little bit stuck, let's say you've gone for a while, now I've got plenty of glue, and you didn't put your lid on right away and it seems to get stuck in the nozzle, just use your heat gun on the nozzle and it'll take that, it'll get that glue flowing freely again, and then you can just recap it and get back to what's more normal. And then back to the glitter. And try to get some glitter all along that edge into the glue on those flowers. And again, pressing some in place around the different places here where I've got little bits of glue. And there we've got a nice little detail that pulls the inside and the outside of the card together with the flowers, the color, and then the glitter on top of it. And I do promise you'll get glitter everywhere. It's a rule. There's a rule about using glitter. So it's probably hopeless to try and do anything with that. I don't think this is going to go back on until I heat this nozzle again. Oh, there it went right in. So I must have taken the blockage out when I made that puddle. Okay, so now we are ready to just use some snail on the back of this piece and get it put into place in our card base. So here we have our card base. And here we have the interior decorated piece to put in place on the inside of our card. And then for the outside of our card, we have this great panel here, which we are going to also just use a little bit of snail on to put into place. Is our card project for the day. Isn't that a pretty little card? And I'm going to just give this bone folder another run at that so it'll stay closed. But there we go. And I mean, it's a cute little card. In fact, these would make great note cards to do in 3 or 4 different colors, and then package them together in one of our acetate boxes. It would make a lovely gift. And so there is the project for the day. And I want to say thank you so much for stopping by my YouTube channel today. I do so appreciate it. And let's see, the prize draw for this month is the 5 ink pad set of the new in colors along with the 5 markers. It's about a $48 value in the catalog. And we've got just a little bit of time left in the pre-order, which gets you ahead of time this lovely embossing folder. It's a dynamic folder, so you use your platform base, the folder, your paper, and just one cutting plate to make this beautiful image. And didn't that come out pretty? It makes me want to make a bunch more in a lot of different colors. In any case, that's it for me today. And if you don't already have a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, I'd love to be your demonstrator, and or you could join my team. Joining now means you have May and June left in this quarter, and then all of the next quarter, which is July, August, and September, to meet your first minimum. So it's a good time to join. I'd love to have you on my team. And so that's it for me today. I'll be back soon with more projects and more cards.